Oh man, this is big, and almost no one in the West is talking about it. What China, Russia, and the United States have done over the last few days will change everything in the biggest way possible, and it's already leading to an economic world war, the likes of which we've never seen before. We'll get into the stunning details in a minute, but first, you'd be forgiven if you were distracted by headlines over the past few months saying that Xi Jinping of China will be thrown out of office soon, or that Vladimir Putin is hiding in a bunker somewhere. All of this is a distraction, and none of it's true. In fact, these two world leaders have been meeting regularly, building up massive stores of gold, silver, and securing land that includes as many precious minerals as possible. They've been meeting recently, in fact, to align their currencies together, simpatico, around precious metals. Now, China doesn't have a lot of precious minerals and petroleum, so they need this partnership. And Russia doesn't have the semiconductors and the electronics, so they need those from China. It's a great symbiotic relationship that has grown by over 40% since the start of this war. Yeah, since the beginning of this year. Now, while at the same time the United States announced they are now $31 trillion in debt, $7 trillion of that is to China. So who gets the upper hand now? But the United States is getting desperate, which I will show you more about in a second. And what the Biden administration just did might make your jaw hit the floor. I promise you, no one is reporting on this. It's an astonishing story. Meanwhile, China just congratulated Russia on the annexation of the Donbas region, which is one of the most mineral-rich areas in the world. That is now under Russia's control. And just a few hours ago in China, yes, earlier this morning, China's President Xi Jinping opened the CCP conference with a speech that most of you who watch Western mainstream media will never see. But it was a historic speech, in my opinion. Xi Jinping outlined how China's control of Hong Kong is now complete, and that Taiwan is next. Let me repeat that. Xi Jinping stood up and declared the control of Hong Kong is now complete and Taiwan is next. Think he's bluffing? I don't. If you've been watching my show for any length of time, you know that I've been saying that the coming war with China is the biggest story in the world, and it's the main story. And China's full control of Taiwan will be the catalyst. Russia's annexation of the mineral-rich Donbas region was just the start of this show. A template for how this is going to go. NATO can fool around all they want in Ukraine because they don't really care about Ukraine at all. They will use Ukraine, and Russia will never give up the Donbas. And America and Western powers will be weakened for spending billions of dollars in a fruitless provocation of Russia. Next to America's failures in Vietnam and Afghanistan, I believe it will go down as one of the biggest military mistakes in Western history. Here's a stupid idea. Let's get the NATO countries together. Let's install a puppet government in Ukraine in 2014, which is what they did. And then let's provoke Russia. Sounds like a great plan. Morons. How'd that work out for you? We will be able to look at a calendar and pinpoint the moment when Western leaders created an energy crisis and an economic catastrophe that crippled Europe and by proxy America, all in an effort to somehow preserve the US dollar's role as the reserve currency of the world. It didn't work. Oh, and now Russia controls eastern Ukraine, which is filled with precious minerals. It was a failure. The main movie is about to start, though, so get your popcorn, because it's going to take place in the South China Sea around Taiwan. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. China will take control of Taiwan. This is inevitable. The People's Republic of China will retake the islands controlled by Taiwan, and there's simply nothing the United States and NATO will be able to do about it. Listen to Colonel Douglas McGregor.
Beijing will not allow Taiwan to become a garrison state for American armed forces or Japanese armed forces or any foreign power. And if they think that we are going to ally ourselves with Taiwan, if they think we are going to intervene to defend that island in the event of a dispute, then we will be at war with China for the reasons that I just outlined. And we are not prepared for that. We are grossly overstretched. We don't have the logistical infrastructure. And frankly, there's an old adage that everyone should remember. A ship's a fool to fight a fort. You have to fight China from the sea. We can't win that. China can absorb everything we throw at it. And the Chinese are happy to sit there, let us travel thousands of miles to reach them, and then sink us.
He's right. But the real war has already started. I promised you a stunning story that might make your jaw hit the floor, as it did for me. This week, we learned what the Biden administration just did to China because it's scared of what's coming. Now, Michael Burry, you might know him as the guy who accurately predicted the housing collapse in 2008. Christian Bale played him in the big movie, The Big Short. Now, he tweeted this week and said this: a critically important story not getting enough attention. And he pointed to Jordan Schneider's coverage of what the United States just did to China. So what is this critically important story? Well, here it is. Quote, lots of people don't know what happened yesterday. To put it simply, Biden has forced all Americans working in China to pick between quitting their jobs and losing American citizenship. Yeah, losing American citizenship because they're working in China? Yeah, it gets worse. Every American executive and engineer working in China's semiconductor manufacturing industry resigned yesterday, paralyzing Chinese manufacturing overnight. Yeah, this just happened. One round of sanctions from Biden did more damage than all 4 years of performative sanctioning under Trump. With the new Biden sanctions, all American suppliers of IP blocks, components, and services departed overnight, thus cutting off all service to China. Long story short, every advanced node semiconductor company is currently facing comprehensive supply cutoffs, resignations from all American staff, and immediate operations paralysis. This is what annihilation looks like. China's semiconductor manufacturing industry was reduced to zero overnight. Complete collapse, no chance of survival, he writes. So what then? How does China respond? Will they just sit back? Of course not. So what island produces the largest amount of chips in the world? What island did Nancy Pelosi fly to recently to check on her investments with chip manufacturers? What island immediately restores China's chip dominance by being under China's full control? This is what war with China looks like. That's why Russia and China have been stockpiling gold and silver and precious minerals, specifically for these component parts, but also to shore up their currencies. Zero Hedge reports that Putin has been building up his defenses against economic sanctions for years. It's almost looking like he knew this was coming.
И так называемые наднациональные элиты не стремились сохранить существующий порядок вещей. Наступает все-таки новая эпоха, новый этап в мировой истории. И только подлинно суверенные государства могут обеспечить высокую динамику роста.
So as the Western media started talking crap about Russia, Putin started stockpiling gold and getting rid of the US dollar reserves. The gold experts I'm speaking to don't see this happening overnight. No, they see like a 6 to 7 year time frame for the complete US dollar collapse and the rise of currencies backed by gold. That's why we partnered with our friends over at the Gold Royalty Company for this video. They're an amazing gold company that doesn't actually have to mine for gold themselves. They make money on the royalties by putting their money behind the best gold mining projects in the world and then reaping the best profits from the miners that do all of the legwork. It's a brilliant strategy. It's kind of like what Sony Music just did when they bought Bruce Springsteen's entire music catalog for $500 million. Sure, they paid that up front, but what they're getting, of course, is nonstop royalties from those songs for years to come. So anytime a Springsteen song is played on the radio, boom, Sony gets paid. So it's very similar to how Gold Royalty Company makes its money off of the royalties from these gold mines that they've invested in. So G-Roy, I'll put their stock ticker up here on the screen. You can check them out on the New York Stock Exchange. And I'll explain more about them in a minute because it's one of the best companies in the world, in my opinion. And they're on their way to becoming a multi-billion-dollar gold resources company. So last week, Representative Alex Mooney of West Virginia quietly introduced a bill in Congress. It didn't get much attention, but what it did was to put the US dollar back on the gold standard. That was the bill before Congress. Yeah, there's a real concern among a handful of American politicians that the collapse is coming faster than expected. Just look at how the U.S. is handling the inflation problem right now. Biden's economic advisor, Cecilia Rouse, was asked this morning on television, when will the so-called Inflation Reduction Act start actually bringing down inflation? Here was her response.
Yeah, I'm just curious, and a lot of Americans are curious, when the so-called Inflation Reduction Act will really start to bring down inflation.
So the many parts of the bill will start to take effect next year. For example, there are tax credits for energy to help people weatherize their homes and also bring down other forms of energy costs. So we are focused on helping to make that transition to clean energy in a way that brings down energy costs for families.
Oh, right. So those tax credits to help people weatherize their homes, which will kick in next year on your tax return, that's going to somehow reduce inflation right now? Gotcha. They think we're all stupid. So investing in a company like Gold Royalty Company is a hedge against the coming collapse. Just look at the gold mining projects that they have in their portfolio right now. All across the US, Canada, and South America, GROY has an industry-leading 60% growth potential over the next 3 years with fantastic cash flow and shareholder dividends. A gold company paying dividends? Again, that's not something that we see very often at all. They also have zero overhead because GROY is a gold royalty company. That means they don't have to put out money for large drilling. They don't have to buy the drills. They don't have to buy the mines. They simply make money on the gold projects that they've funded and they've put their weight behind. Now, another reason we've partnered with GROY on this video is because of what we're seeing in the price target range for an ounce of gold, which is heading towards $2,500 an ounce. Those are the price targets. And as the economic World War III looks inevitable, we are going to see massive collapses in the stock market. Look what we saw on Friday, an absolute massacre. And analyst targets have the stock market in a deep dive through the end of this year into the beginning of next year. So gold is immune to this. That's why these countries like China and Russia are investing so heavily in gold right now. So investing your family's money in gold companies and in gold bullion, in my opinion, is a way to protect your family's wealth, to preserve it. Now, again, I always say this, you might not see massive, appreciation in gold. That's fine. Again, it's a preservation, a hedge against these idiots in Washington and Brussels who are driving our family's dollars and euros into the ground. By protecting your family, by holding precious minerals and real estate and other tangible assets, you're protecting your family's wealth. And GROY understands that. They are the fastest growing gold royalty company in the stock market. GROY is a gold royalty juggernaut that makes money off of the mining of other companies. Again, that's what a gold royalty company does. They make money off the royalties so they don't have to do the heavy lifting of digging for the gold themselves. This is one of those companies that I invest in for the long haul because this is like a 10-year plan for me to hold stock in this company. This isn't something that I hold for a few months. Right now, analysts have a price target for GROY hitting over $8 a share, and it's trading at $2.12 right now as of this morning. So there is enormous growth potential in this company. And the beauty is that this company isn't necessarily correlated to the price of gold. They're tied to the gold that's pulled out of the ground. So I love that gold and precious metals have a lot of upside as far as appreciation goes. Don't get me wrong. I would love to buy gold at $1,500 an ounce, then have it skyrocket to $2,500 an ounce, or buy stock in a company like Gold Royalty for $2 and then watch it skyrocket over $8. That's great. That's all great. But I'm all about protecting my family and making sure that I own assets that are a hedge against inflation and a hedge against these morons in Brussels and Washington who are driving governments into the ground. So this company is going to 10x over the next few years. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm seeing. Now, you should do your own due diligence on this company, as I've done. Dive into the data, as you will see by going to their website. I'll have it linked up in the description below. I'm going to put their stock ticker up here on the screen again. And again, links in the description. You can understand how GROY operates, their types of projects that they're working on right now to extract gold from the ground. I love investing in companies like this because this is where the world order is moving. It is moving quickly away from government fiat currencies and is going back to gold and silver. This is where we are. Russia and China know this, and other Western governments are going to be left behind. Thanks, everyone. Check out the description below, and we'll see you next time.